So with that, let's get started. Today we'll be talking about a grand plan for email lead generation for 2022 using a variety of different email channels in strategic combination to maximize your biz dev efficiency and effectiveness. And a quick note before we start, when we talk about best practices for email lead gen, we often talk about the messages themselves and about addressing your prospect's priorities and challenges and offering value in order to give your prospect a reason to act, to reply, or to click. And although you should keep those principles in mind through today's session, I'm going to diverge a bit from what you say to your prospect and talk a little bit more about how you deliver the message, why different types of email channels offer unique advantages for communicating certain messages to certain prospects, and how you can use those channels as building blocks to create a really robust email lead gen strategy. Let's step back for a second and ask a more general question, and that's, how do you think buyers in today's B2B landscape prefer to be contacted by sellers? So here are 4 pretty common channels for contacting with buyers. And if the topic of the presentation is an indication, you probably have already guessed the answer. It turns out that a recent survey by the RAIN Group, which is a sales training and consulting organization headquartered in Boston, asked this very question. And here are the results. And I've obviously expanded the options a bit to give you a fuller picture of buyers' mindsets on this question. As you can see, one method, email, pretty much blows away the competition. 80% compared with 49% for phone calls, 30% for direct mail, and so on down the list. And of course, I would encourage you to think hard about why that might be and what the answer means for your prospecting strategy. And of course, just because a buyer says they want to be contacted in a certain way doesn't mean it's the only way or even the best way to get results, but it's certainly significant. And I have a theory as to why it's true. And that's that email is an example of what's called asynchronous communication. That is an open, somewhat delayed conversation, mostly across digital channels. So you see here, the first email might be sent on a Monday. You might not get a response till Wednesday, another response the next day, and so on. For the prospect, asynchronous communication can be beneficial because it allows them to process and reply to a buyer on their own terms. Unlike a cold call, it's very comfortable. There's no one in their face or their ear asking them questions that they need to answer on the spot, and they can decide to reply or not entirely based on their own bandwidth, interest, etc. But there are benefits to the sales rep of asynchronous communication too. First and foremost, because if that's where your prospect is, then meeting them there is a good place to start. And secondly, because so much of the buyer's journey, including how we all interact with each other these days, is trending digital, asynchronous communication is a fact of life in B2B sales. If you're not looking to leverage it as part of your prospecting sequence, then you're ceding ground to the competition. And then finally, you can use asynchronous communication channels to insert yourself and your company into the buyer's journey before they're ready to engage in a synchronous conversation, like a cold call or appointment. And I'm sure we've all heard and read about how much of the buyer's journey takes place in the digital space these days. Well, if you're not also in that space, it's possible and even likely that your prospects will be making up their minds before you have the chance to reach them over the phone. So now we arrive at the central point of today's presentation, and that is that if you accept that email is a critical tool in the biz dev toolbox, how do you make the most of it? So even if you have a fantastic list of prospects with email addresses you can use to reach decision makers directly, you can't just throw darts and fire off emails at random. You'll see a lot more success if you take stock of the different email channels sales reps have at their disposal, weigh the strengths and weaknesses of each, and combine them strategically for maximum effectiveness. And hopefully the strategy you see mapped out here looks a lot more thoughtful than the scattered approach on the previous slide. And as you can see, it's a 3-pronged approach that combines distinct but overlapping email channels: one-at-a-time email, email blasts, and automated email prospecting, each of which we'll examine in more detail as we make our way through the presentation today. But first, I just wanted to invite our president, Deborah Klein, to offer any initial thoughts before we dove into the substance.
So I just want to remind everybody that we are obviously proponents of email. We believe in it. It works. And yet, because it's in some ways easier and avoids some of the challenges of talking on the phone to people, it can often be used as a crutch. So I'm just saying now, it's not the only way, and as Sam said, not always the best way to get in touch with folks that you haven't met. So even though we're not talking about actual cold calling today, that doesn't mean that that shouldn't be a part of our strategy. And it's really important to make sure that you know why you're emailing, what your goals are before you actually hit send.
That's right. And just to echo that, I think regular insiders, we will know that we're huge proponents of a very diverse biz dev approach, including email and other synchronous tools. Today, we're zooming in on one piece of it, but after the presentation, what I hope everybody will have in their minds is that when you zoom back out and you see all the pieces, that email piece is really set up in a way that helps all the other pieces operate maximum effectiveness. So let's take a look at the first prong in our three-pronged email lead gen strategy. And rather than starting with the channel itself, I thought I'd start with the objective, which is to target your top prospects and send highly personalized emails in an effort to engage with decision makers at high value firms. And for that, you need the ability to send one at a time emails directly to decision makers. So you can see here, I've highlighted the direct one at a time prong of our approach. Again, the who for this channel is your highest value prospects and or your warmest prospects, the ones you may already have engaged with previously. And the pros of one at a time email are pretty straightforward. Since you're writing to exactly one person, you can take the time to make your message highly personalized with specific information about your prospect, their company, and the challenges they're likely facing in their industry, all of which increases the likelihood that your prospect views your email as a message from a real live human being intended for them. And the cons, of course, is that this approach takes a lot of time. You need to curate a list of your top prospects, take time to research the company as well as the decision makers, maybe by searching for mutual connections on LinkedIn, and type out largely individual emails. And of course, you can send cold emails to top prospects out of the blue, and a well-crafted message may be sufficient to resonate with them and generate a response. But another benefit of the strategy is that you can deploy it tactically in combination with other prospecting channels. So here's one example where the sales rep leaves a voicemail and follows up with an email. Nothing too complicated here, but by anchoring your email on the right to your cold call on the left, you give your email purpose, not to mention the fact that you're attempting to engage your prospect through multiple entry points and reinforcing your message. And of course, you can send them in reverse order as well, sending information via email first and then following up with a cold call. So just a couple of quick examples of how one at a time email can be used, again, in conjunction with other prospecting channels to send highly targeted messages with intent to high value prospects. As our clients know, BusinessWise makes it easy to send one at a time emails to decision makers, and I would strongly encourage our clients to take advantage of that feature. And as a side note, it's an important but often overlooked benefit of having a list that includes multiple ways to reach your prospects. You instantly have access to a series of coordinated prospecting sequences that increase the odds of engagement in a number of different ways. So just to sum up again, the key points here are that one at a time email is ideal for targeting those really high value prospects where taking the time to include specific personalized info is really worth it. And once again, it's flexible, adaptable, and lends itself to being deployed in coordination with other prospecting methods. Deborah, did you want to add anything here?
I encourage everyone that doesn't have a list of their about 60 dream clients to put that on your to-do list for today and create a list. If it's in your head, it's not a list, and create a list of your dream clients based on all the criteria that we've talked about in other sessions that I won't go into now. We're certainly happy to help you with this. And if you think about the number 60, it's not a magic number, but it's certainly one that you can work with because there's about 20 working days a month. So now you've got 3 prospects a day that you can either reach by email or phone. and keep doing it repeatedly, because you know it takes a lot of touches before you're going to connect.
That's right. And as we move through the presentation, we'll talk about how other email channels can actually free you up to do that more effectively. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. So let's move on to the second prong of our three-pronged approach, where the goal is really to expand your reach. So if you're in our first section, you're talking about emailing an individual with a specific personalized email. Here, you're talking about reaching everybody with one message to communicate a specific message to your entire audience without a ton more time or energy. And for that, we use what I'm calling an email blast. It's something I'm pretty confident you're all familiar with. The who for this channel is everybody on your list, or maybe a segment of your audience, depending on the message you want to communicate. And the point is that it's designed for large audiences, and it's designed to be sent and received all at once. And the pros, accordingly, are that it's a great tool for time-sensitive messages, information about an event, a time-sensitive offer, or something that is especially likely to be on your prospect's mind at a given moment. And in the world of B2B business development, the email blast is often the purview of marketers and not sales reps. And that's because the objective is often to raise brand awareness or offer something only indirectly related to the buying decision, like an ebook or white paper or other piece of content. But those kinds of marketing assets are really only time sensitive for you. You schedule a webinar or an event or a special offer, and you invite your prospect to benefit from it. But I wanted to make the point that time-sensitive email blasts can be effective channels for sales reps looking to set appointments as well, especially when they're sent to prospects at a time when they're most likely to resonate. So if you're in an industry with a fixed buying schedule, or where contracts come up for renewal at a specific time of year, then there are times when you really want to get in front of your prospects with a specific message. And that's what email blasts are for. So if one at a time emails to your top prospects are something that you'll be sending on an ongoing basis as you create and refine your list of top prospects, email blasts are more discrete, distinct, and best deployed when you know you'll want to reach a significant portion of your audience simultaneously. So again, be strategic. Think ahead about when those times occur and map out and plan a schedule. And then don't forget that time-sensitive communications are perhaps most powerful when your prospects are likely to care most about them. Deborah, any thoughts?
There is a technology downside to a blast, and there are chances that you're going to reach a lower number of people in a blast because of the technology on the receiver's end. It's just a fact of life, and you have to know about it and deal with it, and then focus on the folks that do read and open your message.
Right. And again, email blasts can work for all the reasons that marketers have been using them for years, but the most successful sales reps are the ones who know when and how to use email blasts for appointment setting and deploy them accordingly. So using a mix of types of offers that are both maybe more toward the marketing end of the spectrum, but some that are also towards the sales and appointment setting end of the spectrum is always a smart idea. So that brings us to our third email channel, and it's really the key to unlocking the effectiveness of email as part of a broader and more robust biz dev strategy, and that's automated email prospecting with the goal of creating a steady stream of leads. And for automated email prospecting, or AEP, as we call it at BusinessWise, the who is very different. Rather than high-value prospects you want to send personalized messages to, or large audiences you want to communicate a specific time-sensitive offer to, with AEP, we're looking to target pretty much everybody else. The ones who fit your firmographic criteria, but that might not be at the top of your list for cold calls or highly personalized emails. And you can see the pros of this approach are that it automates this process of writing one at a time emails, requires little ongoing effort, and creates this steady stream of leads. The cons, of course, are minimal personalization opportunities, and it's not suited for time-sensitive offers. So I want to spend a few seconds just elaborating on what I mean when I say automated email prospecting, because it'll help give you a better understanding of how this all fits together. So here's a typical example of an AEP campaign that we manage for our clients. We work with clients to develop a series of 3 messages, an initial message and 2 follow-ups Whenever a prospect replies, the sequence stops for that prospect. Each prospect receives the sequence over the course of a couple of weeks with intervals of up to a week between the messages, but new prospects are added only gradually to the campaign. So maybe 100 new prospects receive message 1 each day, and the campaign runs over several months, as few as 3, but as many as 6 or 7. And the idea here is that AEP is pretty much always running in the background, delivering replies gradually to your inbox as long as the campaign is active. So now imagine you have an AEP campaign running here on the left with a target market of 5,000 prospects. That list size is set. You filled it with your best 5,000 prospects, maybe based strictly on demographic criteria. So you know you're reaching those 5,000 best prospects with an automated campaign that requires no effort from you other than fielding responses. You can now use your one-at-a-time emails or cold calls or whatever other labor-intensive, time-intensive prospecting channel you use to focus on a much tighter set of your absolute best prospects. So you've effectively created 2 lists tailored to your prospecting channel. And I want to clarify here that increasing efficiency does not mean figuring out how to prospect without actually doing any hard work. It means maximizing the odds that the hard work you inevitably have to do will pay off by ensuring that it's focused on engaging with the highest value or warmest prospects. And so you can begin to see here how, as these pieces fit together, there's a smart way to use certain email channels to unlock the effectiveness of other email channels. And that's what our focus at BusinessWise here is with our AEP clients. We write the messages, oversee the campaigns to free clients up to create connections, set appointments, and close deals. And again, the key point here is just to remember that automation can help take the tedious business of email prospecting off of your plate so that you can be more effective and efficient with your time and energy. With automated email prospecting, you're guaranteed to be prospecting continuously, and staying consistent and persistent with your prospecting is always a huge challenge. This is especially important for firms where sales reps have dual roles and simply can't prospect every day, or for businesses with long buying cycles where if you don't happen to call someone at just the right time, you may not have another purchasing opportunity for your service for an extended period of time. And while we all love the enthusiastic responses from prospects who are eager to meet, the primary goal here is to generate replies of any kind, excuse me, that can lead to conversations and allow you as a B2B sales rep to do what you do best. Deb, anything to add?
You'll see a big difference in the kinds of replies you get from automated email prospecting than you do from the other approaches. And it is wonderful, amazing, and great for a salesperson to have somebody respond to an email that you didn't actually send, but to the reader, it feels like you did, and they respond to you personally. It's wonderful. Just ask anybody that's done it.
And that actually is a great segue to the final step of our process, which is the importance of responding to the responses. Because no matter which channel you use, your campaign or message is really only the first part of the lead gen equation. Prospects will respond, which means you need to prepare. And we probably don't need to spend too much time on how to respond to enthusiastic replies because your work has basically already been done for you. You just set a time to meet and move forward. But the less enthusiastic responses are really important because how you handle them can make or break the success of the campaign. And the primary reason is that just about everybody says no to the first request. You know, this is cold prospecting after all, and whether you're cold calling or cold emailing, you're likely reaching a prospect at a time that they're not really thinking about what it is you're offering, certainly not thinking about buying anything, and so you're going to encounter some degree of resistance. Secondly, a no suggests that your message actually resonated enough for your prospect to reply because they don't have to. They can unsubscribe, ignore, delete, but they didn't. They clicked reply and typed a message and hit send. And when they reply, you have a golden opportunity to accomplish a really important objective of cold email outreach, and that's to show your prospect that they're a real live person on the other side. This isn't as much an issue with one-at-a-time email, where your initial email is hopefully personalized and specific enough that it shows there's somebody who is paying attention. But with automated email campaigns or with email blasts, it's hard to personalize to the degree that it shows somebody there's a person on the other side. But as soon as they respond, you can reply and start a one-on-one conversation using info specific to your prospect, just like in a one-at-a-time email, and keying off the specific words they used, so it shows that there's a real life person on the other side of the conversation. And a couple of key points just to sum up. First, responding promptly is really important. All you know at the point of receiving a reply is that your email got your prospect's attention. So take advantage and get back to them while it's still top of mind. If you wait even a day, your prospect may be mentally checked out by then and you've lost your chance to start that conversation. Second, as we just discussed, is your chance to show that you're a human on the other side, which is really critical. And then finally, moving the conversation forward by asking questions that are designed to learn more about your prospect's mindset. So when your prospect answers your questions, you'll have more to go on for a subsequent response and a better idea of what kind of value they need to see to continue engaging with you. Deb, anything before I wrap things up?
When you think about this response process in the scheme of an actual phone conversation, we all know that our respondent is most likely to say, no, not interested, we're all set initially. And any of us that have had those conversations also know that there are times when that same person, because of the conversation you continue to have, changes their mind and becomes open to meeting with you. So the same kind of thing can happen in that email conversation. And as Sam was saying, it's important to start it and not just automatically give up and try to understand what's going on with that prospect. And this is also something that you can do yourselves or that we can do for you.
That's right. As part of our AEP service for clients, we include inbox management, which basically takes that initial response management off of your shoulders again. And then you don't receive the lead until we've warmed it up enough to be confident that it's something that's worth your time. And it ensures that your list is managed well. Every response gets a prompt reply based on what we've seen work in the real world. And I see Peter Sherman has asked for a specific example. I don't have any that I can pull up right now, but in our follow-up message today, I'll see if I can pull together an example of an actual real world reply, maybe even one toward the not interested side of the spectrum, and how we've been able to turn into an actual conversation. So we're going to split up into smaller groups in a moment. And I'd encourage everyone to stick around, introduce yourself, share any of your own insights on what we covered today. But if you can't stay and you are interested in talking a little bit more with one of our biz dev experts about how to use email strategically to engage with prospects and set appointments, please let us know in the chat window, and we'll be sure to make a note to follow up with you. And in the meantime, here are a few questions to think about for purposes of the breakout discussions or just to carry with you after today's session. Does your list include email addresses for decision makers in your target market? I think we all have email lists, but thinking about whether we have emails for prospects who might not know about us already or who we may not know about is really critical. Do you use more than one type of email channel for email lead gen? As I illustrated in a previous slide, piecing these together in a way where you have a foundation of automation, a plan for sending discrete email blasts, and then freeing your time up to send personalized emails to top prospects can be really effective. So thinking about these as separate channels rather than just opening up an email window and hitting send is important. Do you combine the different channels strategically or randomly? Do you use email lead gen consistently? Again, consistency has been a real stumbling block for people who want to be consistent but fail. Why do you think you're not able to stay consistent if you aren't? Do you have time-specific offers or events you want your prospects to know about? What is your email lead gen goal for each email? More appointments, higher brand awareness, that'll obviously dictate your offer. Does your email lead gen strategy include a response strategy? And then again, stepping back, how do your asynchronous and synchronous tools complement each other?